Good evening, all.
Good evening, Dr. Igiro. Good evening.
It's 9 o'clock by my time.
Yeah.
And all our resource persons are online already, so we want to start off immediately without much time wasting. So once again, good evening, distinguished colleagues. Good evening, our fellows here present, and most senior colleagues here present. We are all once again welcome to another night of educative session in our series of lectures and trainings from the Drug Information Specialist Group. And tonight, we shall be taking a look at Drug Information Training for Pharmacists Module 3, Drug Information Resources. Our resource persons for tonight, we have Pharmacist Folashade Olawa, who shall be introducing us to the topic. And then we'll have Dr. Ibrahim Bello, who will be taking a look at tertiary resources. And Dr. Idris Kupola shall be taking us through secondary resources. And Dr. Polycarp shall be taking us through primary and alternative resources. And as usual, our interaction tonight promises to be very informative and educative as usual. We shall pay attention to, we shall listen to the presentations, at the end of which questions and answer session will begin. Each presenter has 15 minutes to cover their parts. So we'll like, before we start, any volunteer to open the session for today with a prayer. Can anybody volunteer? Can we have a volunteer, please?
They can raise hand so we can meet them.
Yes, okay.
Yes, you can.
Please, you can indicate by raising your hands. Hello? Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but they are muted, so they can only raise hands if they want to send.
Okay, please, you are muted. So, okay, Dr. Popola, Polycarp, please, you can open the meeting with prayer for us, please. So unmute yourself, please. Please unmute and proceed.
Hello, are you hearing?
Yes, we are hearing you. Go ahead, we are hearing you, Dr. Polycarp. We can't hear you, but it's like you are concluded.
It's okay. I think it looks like he has concluded. Okay, the network seems to be a little poor at his end. So let's quickly proceed. We want to call on Pharmacist Folashade Olawa to introduce us to our topic for today. Pharmacist Folashade, please. Unmute.
Good evening, distinguished colleagues. Please, I need to know if you are hearing me.
Yes, we are
Loud
hearing
and
Are you
clear.
hearing me?
Yes, we are
Okay,
hearing
Loud
that's
and clear,
fine.
ma'am.
Please permit me to share my slides.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm highly delighted to be with us again tonight, and we'll be looking at drug information resources. So I have a few slides to share.
And share. You have been permitted. Please, can you go ahead and share your slide?
Okay. Sorry. Share screen. Yeah. Okay. So I would like to take us through a brief recap of what we have done in the last two lessons because they're all interrelated. We looked at introduction to the concept of drug information, and there we got to know, or we reminded ourselves that provision of drug information is a fundamental responsibility of the pharmacist, and it provides opportunity to contribute effectively to optimize therapeutic outcomes. And I think I'll be right to say no drug information, no pharmacist. There's no pharmacist that will not have to provide drug information service in whatever form. And so it's something that all of us are involved in. Every pharmacist has the duty to provide drug information. The levels might differ, the environments might differ, but we all have that responsibility to provide drug information service. After that, we looked at formulating an effective response. And this was another very interesting topic. We looked at the structured approach of formulating an effective drug response. And we were told that the need to help an inquirer get to the root of his concerns and get it met professionally, that's what we're looking at here. And I want to quote Pharmacist Taylor Adekola. He said something very interesting that day and left me with that message. He said the setting, the query, the requester may vary, but the process of formulating response remains the same. And that is the truth. The setting may be different. It may be hospital setting, it may be community pharmacy setting. The queries may differ from adverse drug reaction to manufacturer, whatever it is. And the requester might be a medical doctor or a healthcare professional, a patient, a lay person. But at the end of the day, the process by which we formulate the response is still the same. It's important that we get very good information of whoever the inquirer is. We need to understand the reasons for the query, and the background information of the inquirer is very key to what we will do. Now, I will talk about a few cases here as regards formulating responses. I recall a patient on some time, and he was upset. He said him medicine for mental health. The doctor placed him on chlorpromazine, and he went somewhere to find out what is the use of chlorpromazine. And the person told him, oh, it's for mental health. For him, he had protracted hiccups, and that's what his doctor was managing him for. So he just threw away the drug. I mean, he got angry and discarded the drug. He did not use it. And that's because he was poorly informed. I also have another patient on carbamazepine who wanted to know what carbamazepine was for. And when she was so seizure, you know how we behave for my enemy, no seizure, no. Apparently she had migraine and the doctor was using it to treat that disorder for her. So the way we respond matters a great deal. The information just has to come in the right way. And the only way information can come in the right way is for us not to be in a hurry to disperse that information. We need to find out properly what is behind the query. I also recall a physician requesting for intravenous anti-malaria other than quinine for a little child. And by the time we interacted, I found out that this child had fever, very high fever, was coughing, even though MP was positive. Child had been given quinine injection, and they were still saying plus malaria. At the end of the day, by the time we rubbed minds together, we decided, okay, let's wait for the full blood count and all that. And at the end of the day, the actual problem was that this child had pneumonia and antibiotics had a case of just malaria that was being handled. So it's important that we get to understand what is behind the query. More often than not, query will just fly. Now let's look at what we have to discuss today. From what I have said earlier, from the build-up, it's obvious that the source of our information is very important in drug information. A good drug information specialist must know where to look for what and provide well-sought information. You just must know where to get that information that is adequate. For example, if there's a query on the use of hydroxychloroquine in management of rheumatoid arthritis, where you look for the response to that is different from if the query is on the use of hydroxychloroquine in the management of COVID-19. We know that for management of rheumatoid arthritis is an established case. So there are resources that will have rich information as far as that is concerned. But when it comes to management of COVID-19, you cannot run to a tertiary place to look for that kind of information. We cannot get it from a secondary source. We can only get information for now from primary sources, and we cannot conclude from them yet. So that takes us to the major information resources that we have. We have the tertiary, the secondary, and the primary. I will not dwell much on them because that is why we are here, and we have resource persons that have prepared to do great justice to this in detail. So for now, I just want us to know that, or to remind ourselves that we have tertiary, secondary, and primary drug information sources. And then we should also know that all details in query management should be correctly filled. And information that we provide, we must reference it. We'll find out why that has to be. It's good for us to have more than one reference. It's good for us to look at least 2 references. And I have a case here that brings that to bear. This patient was put on ibecitan 300 milligrams, metoclopramide 10 milligrams, atorvastatin 20 milligrams, erythromycin 500 milligrams, CDS, omeprazole 20 milligrams daily. Interestingly, Hippocrates had different interaction profile for these 4 drugs from what Medscape has. But when we get to up to date, it has the same interaction profile as that for Medscape. So it's important that we get to the root of the matter. It's important that we get to compare whatever information, and then as professionals we'll be able to come up with what should be. And if we need to still search further, we'll be able to know that by saying that misinformation can be very costly. Thank you all. Glory to God. I want to pause here so that I can allow others who have prepared fully for these lectures to do justice to it. Thank you. God bless you all.
That was a very good way to introduce the topic. Thank you very much, Pharmacist Folashade Lawal, for this wonderful opener. We now want to go deeper into the series as we pay attention to Dr. Ibrahim Bello as he takes on tertiary resources. Dr. Bello, please.
Good evening, dear all. Permit me to stand on the setting protocol. My name is Dr. I.K. Bello. I will be presenting on drug information training for pharmacists, Module 3, with focus on tertiary resources. Here is the outline of my presentation. To start with, we'll be looking at types of biomedical resources. There are 3 types of biomedical resources, namely primary, secondary, and tertiary resources. They are equally referred to as primary, secondary, or tertiary literature or references. Healthcare professionals must be knowledgeable about these different types of biomedical resources and be proficient as using them. This skill will enable them to use resources to their advantage without wasting time and energy. Knowing the most appropriate resources for information retrieval is the first step in the provision of quality drug information. Now we are looking at tertiary resources. Some tertiary resources are available as electronic books or electronically searchable online applications, e.g., micromedias, clinical pharmacology, and lexicon. They provide a quick and easy summary of a topic. Examples include textbooks, compendia, review articles in journals, clinical guidelines, and other general information. This has benefits and limitations. The benefit includes they provide a quick and easy summary of a topic. They are convenient to use and easy, familiar to most practitioners. But the limitation is that they have delay in updating and may be out of date before publication. Information may be incomplete, and there may be errors in transcription or lack of expertise by the authors. So in providing response to query using tertiary literature, you need to ascertain whether the author has appropriate experience or expertise, or is the information timely? Is the information supported by appropriate citations? You need to know that. Does the resources contain relevant information? Is it free from bias and error? And is the information up to date? You need to find out that. Then in selecting tertiary resources for your DIU or DIC, those to be selected, you need to know the level of accuracy, their comprehensiveness, their currency, ease of use, and the differences in practice setting. Available funding, the patient population seen, and type of information most commonly needed. They come in form of electronic versions and hard copies. Moving on, I want to look at resources for mobile devices. Examples include Medscape, UpToDate, Dynamite Plus, Evidence Plus, Dynamite, and Hippocrates. Then best free mobile app for pharmacists include Hippocrates, iPharmacy, Monthly Prescribing Reference, Pocket Pharmacies, Medscape, Drugs.com. etc. Then we want to have an overview of lexicon. Lexicon comes in three forms. It comes in print copies, in form of mobile applications and online. It is a database, a very huge database that is a host to other databases, which include LexiDrugs, LexiDrugs International, pediatrics and neonatal LexiDrugs, geriatric LexiDrugs, natural products, pharmacogenomics, and so on. It also has clinical modules like drug interaction checkers, drug identifiers, extensive medical calculators. It contains up to 100 different medical calculators. Then patient education modules, which are printables. Moving forward, we want to have a look at Hippocrates, a very short video exploring the clinical content of Hippocrates. Just a 1-minute video show.
Our clinical intelligence tool, Hippocrates Plus, is America's #1 medical app. With easy navigation and comprehensive yet concise information, Hippocrates Plus is an indispensable tool for today's healthcare provider. Using your smartphone, you can review prescribing and safety information for thousands of drugs, including alternative medicines. Check for potentially harmful drug interactions among up to 30 drugs your patient may be using. Access thousands of disease monographs to help in your diagnosis and selection of treatment. And with Athena Text, you can send secure, HIPAA-compliant messages to your care team, inside and outside your practice. Use our coding bundles to help decipher the complex world of ICD-10 and CPT codes. Quickly navigate Hippocrates guideline synopsis for authoritative, evidence-based recommendations arranged by specific patient type. Having the latest curated clinical content in the palm of your hand saves you time and helps you be even more present for your patients in the moments of care. That's Hippocrates.
So next, we want to categorize tertiary resources. These are two categories: general medical information and specific medical information. Example of general medical information resources are clinical pharmacology, access pharmacy, Hippocrates, lexicon, Contd, and so on. Contd in Ghana is the resources used at their National Drug Information Center to serve the whole country. And during our trainings in PharmD at UNIBEN, Hippocrates was introduced to us for those of us that attended PharmD conversion program in UNIBEN. And lexicon, we have talked about it. Access Pharmacy is a library containing a lot of pharmacy books, both the audio and video, and many other things. Clinical pharmacology is like lexicon. So these are for general medication information. And now for specific medical information, was if you receive a query, like a pharmacist Lawal said, you need to find the ultimate questions and categorize your query. Is this on side effects? Is this on interaction? Is this on toxicology? Is it on natural medicine? It is said it is not a sin if our pharmacist does not know at hand the right information to give, but it's a sin if he does not know where to find that information. So when you are going to find information, you need to categorize them in that under general or specific. If it's specific, you go for databases on specific information. So these are databases on specific medicine information. Then we're moving on to case studies. Answer to this should be passed to the chat corners. Case number 1 is a 15-year-old patient has recently been started on atomoxetine for treatment of hyperactivity disorder. He's taking no other medications. He has noted recently that his hair is thinning. I want to know if this might be drug-related. The question is, what are appropriate tertiary resources to consult for resource to this request? That's question number 1. Case 2, a new mother has been breastfeeding a child for 3 months. The mother has already been prescribed levofloxacin for treatment of an infection. Question, what resources should be consulted to determine the appropriateness of this choice? Is it safe for her to continue breastfeeding during this therapy? What additional information is needed to help save your search strategy? Case number 3. A pharmacy student is working on a presentation involving illicit drugs. She knows that there have been recent news stories about adolescents causing using Contd product for recreational use, and she's curious at what doses these products are toxic. Question, which resources will you be useful for our project, and what such time might be machine utilized? So answer to these cases should be forwarded to a drug information chart. In conclusion, healthcare professionals must be knowledgeable about the different type of biomedical resources and be proficient at using them to tailor their search and find useful information in an efficient manner. Without this skill, they may not be able to use resources to their advantage and may waste time and energy not obtaining appropriate information. Sir Isaac Newton has been frequently credited for this phrase, if I have seen father, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Summary, for us to do the best, we must be familiar with all these great resources available to us as pharmacists. Thank you. These are my references.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ibrahim Bello, for that wonderful session. We now want to proceed to the secondary resources. This will be handled for us by Dr. Idris Kupola. Dr. Idris, please.
Thank you very much for having me. I want to thank the two earlier presenters. I'll be taking the secondary resources. You have heard from Dr. Ibrahim the limitations and of tertiary resources, and because of these limitations, that is why the need for secondary resources to be consulted. Like he said, some of these publications, tertiary publications, might be out of date by the time you'll be consulting them. So you will need more recent resources to validate whatever inquiries you have received. So that's why it's very important to have secondary resources, as Pharmacist Falashade has also said, it is always good to have one to consult more than one resources, So because of those limitations of the tertiary resources, like could be out of date, there could be biases, and even to evaluate them, you need to go further than just consulting tertiary resources. So I'll be taking you through the secondary resources. This is my outline of what we'll be looking at for secondary resources. I have the introduction, the characteristics of an ideal secondary resource, comprising of major databases and search engines, because we'll be using databases and search engines when it comes to secondary resources. The advantages and the disadvantages, and we'll conclude. Like I've rightly been introduced, my name is Dr. Idris Kupola. All right. By way of introduction, secondary resources of drug information are references that either index or abstract primary literature with the goal of directing the user to primary literature. These abstract or index summarizes the information arising in primary resource. It links you with the primary resource. That is what secondary resources, do. They are abstract or indexes that take you directly, give you an, a link to the original work. Indexing and abstracting services are valuable tools for quick and selective screening of primary literatures. The user is provided a searchable database that indexes or abstracts the primary resource. Most of the secondary resources are electronic in format. You agree with me that because they are electronic in format, the advent of internet facility has expanded their availability and usability. Like the earlier presenter said, 2 or more secondary resources are preferable for an adequate and comprehensive literature search. When you want to consult primary secondary resources, it involves the use of various search machines and a lot of various search machines and strategies to be able to identify appropriate results. So we'll be looking at so many search engines and strategies to employ when you are using them in your search. It requires appropriate search strategies, such as the use of medical subject headings by Medline, the use of Boolean operators. We'll look at that in detail as we go along. Then we'll come to the characteristics of an ideal secondary resource. For a secondary resource to be, ideal, it should be inclusive. That is, it should contain peer review and non-peer review available resources, so that we'll be able to, have a comprehensive search that will give us a good yield, a maximum yield of search results. Because not all literatures or articles are peer reviewed. And by not being peer reviewed does not mean they are not of scientific value. So a secondary resource that is inclusive, it's what is preferred. That has both be peer reviewed and non-peer reviewed resources. The search should return only the most relevant literature. It is not the volume of literature that was search results that is important, but the quality of the result is what is important, and only the relevant ones. Because if you are overwhelmed with so much volume of literature, you will spend more time and energy trying to sift through them. So a good secondary resource to return only the most relevant literature, and this needs some strategies, which, if time permits, to try to look at some of those strategies on how to refine search and or exclude those are not very important. You should also be able to link the searcher to the full text article and citation analysis. Like we said, primary is the secondary resource will link you to the original work. A good secondary resource should be able to link you to the full text so that you'll be able to see the methodology for you to be able to validate, the literature, the information therein, and also the citation analysis. It will also help to give you the scientific value, of that contribution, or the literature as to what we are trying to find out. Secondary resource without a subscription is desirable. It's unfortunate that most of the secondary resources you will need subscription to be able to access them. But there are some that are open. They are free, like Google Scholar and PubMed. While the majority of them you will need to subscribe for you to be able to, access them. These are examples of secondary resource. We have the Google Scholar, the PubMed, and Medline, and so many other, So let's look at some of the comparison of major databases and search engines that are mostly used, like the Embase, the Google Scholar, the International Pharmaceutical Abstract, PubMed, Scopus, Web of Science. If you look at the characteristics, look at the number of peer-reviewed journal index, you will see that for Web of Science, it's greater than 12,000, while for International Pharmaceutical Abstract is in the region of about 800. So this will tell you that, the impact that the Web of Science has in the coverage it has, and the number of peer-reviewed articles that are, in that journal. If you also look at the gray literature, these are the non-peer-reviewed, literature covered by this secondary resource. You will see that Google Scholar has many of gray, literature, which is good because, like I said earlier, it's a good secondary resource should be able to be inclusive, both the peer review and non-peer review. Like PubMed has none, doesn't, entertain much of gray literature. Then if you come to look at update frequency, you agree with me that if you are looking for up-to-date, information, Embase is updated daily. Likewise, PubMed, compared to Google Scholar, that it's updated monthly. So for a timely search, up-to-date information, you are likely to get them from Embase, PubMed, Scopus, that are, updated daily. Look at the citation analysis. Virtually all have good citation analysis, and except PubMed. So these are some of the, the comparison, when you want to know which one to go for, when you look at this comparison, it will help a lot to, you might not be able to have all, but at least it will be a guide in selecting some of the secondary resources. Most of these search engines and secondary have their own, inherent advantages and disadvantages. But basically, the search, they have employed simple search strategy. What do I mean by simple search strategies? Most of them have a kind of tutorials, to help you or to guide you through. So they are searching them. All you need to do is to be able to go through the tutorials, be able to understand some of the terms or terminologies. Like I say, Medline uses medical subject headings. Google Scholar, there are some, some words or symbols you can use in refining your search to be able to maximize your yield. So the search, if you go through the tutorials, you'll be able to, familiarize yourself on, how to go through the search using the any of these search engines. They also give very current citation information. Like I said earlier, the tertiary resources, because of the date of publication, and the rate at which medical and health information are being churned out, they might not really be very current to be able to answer some queries. So you will need, secondary literature which are more current because they are very current citation information. They are also access points to tremendous amount of primary resource because they will link you, to the primary resource where you can get first-hand information. They also have their disadvantages, like each of the search engines has its own peculiar, language or vocabulary that they understand, So if you are not familiar with some of those terms, you might not be able to navigate through and get a maximum yield in terms of search results. It requires more expertise to use than primary or tertiary resource. Retrieval references must be filtered for quality. Yes, Google Scholar could return results, more results than PubMed. But if you compare Google Scholar and PubMed, you discover that Google Scholar has some inconsistencies, while PubMed gives more concise search results. So, and you need to filter some of these results, to be able to, understand or make meaning of the volume of results, search results you're getting. You must track down resources before looking for answer to queries. What this means is that you have to be able to find the right resource to consult before you will now be able to even answer some of these queries. If you don't know how to get the right resource and track down these resources, you waste a lot of time to be, especially for in an hospital setting where some of these queries might, have a time, a timeline because patients are on admission, and so you need to have some expertise in navigating through these resources to be able to maximize your search yield and minimize the time you waste. They may also lead to misinterpretation of information because these are databases of, that have been put together. So if you like abstracting now, you need to get to the primary source to be able to validate, whatever you are getting from these indexes or abstracts. It might not be enough for you to conclude or take decision, except you evaluate the primary source and be able to, so otherwise you will be getting misinterpreting the information you are getting from the secondary source. In conclusion, there are several secondary sources that are available to answer information queries. Each resource has its advantages, disadvantages, and nuances with regard to searching. Understanding the scope of coverage and how to search each data is essential to maximize the yield of search. Being an efficient searcher is critical to being an effective drug information specialist. These are my references. Thank you for listening.
I want to say a big thank you to you, Dr. Idris Popola, for your wonderful presentation. Before we move on to the last presenter, please permit me to acknowledge the presence of Professor Suleiman and Professor Lufunke in our midst. Welcome to, we're happy to have you in our midst. I also want to recognize a very distinguished pharmacist who have been doing us proud in the COVID-19 channels program, Onedo Titilayo. It's a pleasure to have you in our midst. At this point, we want to move on to the last presenter for today, Dr. Polycarp, as he will be taking us through the primary and alternative resources.
Good day, distinguished pharmacists, senior colleagues, very distinguished professors, colleagues. My name is Dr. Polycarp. I'm a consultant pharmacist and a pharmaco-informatician expert. I'm here to talk to you about primary literature as sources for drugs. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. As an introduction, primary literature consists of primary research studies and reports, both published and unpublished. Not all literature published in a journal is classified as primary literature. For example, review articles, editorial commentaries are not primary literature. There are several types of publication considered as primary literature, such as control clinical trials, cohort studies, case series, and case reports. Next slide, please. Now, the criteria for determining quality of online primary literature sources. First is the source credible without a vested interest in promoting one particular treatment or product? Is the information accurate and correct? Next, does the site link to other non-affiliated sites that provide consistently good information? Is the information appropriately detailed and referenced? Is it possible to identify the author of the site to contact with additional information and comments? These are some of the criteria you look at. Now, we want to look at a typical format of a primary literature. Normally, this is a typical format for a primary. It comes with the abstract, introduction, literature review, methodology or method, result presentation, discussion, conclusion and recommendation, acknowledgement, declaration of a conflict of interest, sources of funding and references. Now, for the abstract is a summary of everything. Within the abstract, you have the background, the methodology, you have the discussion, result, and conclusion. Briefly, you read through it to see whether you should continue into the body of the article to read and get more information. If you read the abstract and it's not what you need, you can leave it and do. That's why it's very important. Now, introduction has to do with an overview of everything. While the literature review talks about what are the various previous studies that we are looked at before the author initiated this study. Now, when you look at the literature review, look at the latitude, the combination of the past and present. What are the lengths or the years in between? How current and how far back did he go to do such, to get information so as to mix the old and the new together? Very vital. The methodology talks about experimental design comprising the study site, study population, the sampling technique that was used, randomization, blinding methods, data collection methods, statistical analysis method, control method that was used in the study, was it appropriate? Ethical and consent clearance, very vital. The ethical and consent clearance, very vital when you are dealing with human trials. You need to have that, and it needs to be stated in this study. Result presentation, very vital. You look at the result, how well presented is it? So as to give quality, a poorly presented result calls for question. Discussion, you look at it, you still look at the latitude of discussion. What were the studies that were used in comparing the result of this present study? Are they current, outdated studies? Conclusion and recommendation. Conflict of interest is very vital. Why? Because we want to know the level, proportion of contribution of donors or sponsors of those who funded the research. How vested is their interest? So as to see whether there's a level of influence on the study. Sources of information and referencing. Referencing is also very important, especially when you look at the currentness of the reference. Next slide, please. There are some disadvantages of using primary literatures. They include misleading conclusion based on only one trials without the context of other research. You don't need to use one. When you are going for a primary literature, you need to have a number of them so as to give you a broader view on a particular topic. They need to have good skills in medical literature evaluation. You learn over time. We are still learning. You continue to learn. It's a learning process, especially evaluating medical literatures. The time needed to evaluate this large volume is also a challenge because it's quite boring. But of course, the end justifies the means. Next slide, please. There are also tenets you keep in mind when you are evaluating the primary literature. Number one, always ensure or try to find out whether the site or the journal is supported by an educational institution. If it is supported by or funded or owned by an educational institution, credibility is high and it's quite reliable because that you see, most of these published articles are peer reviewed, and you look at the editorial board and look at the caliber of people that are there. Of course, that will tell you the rigors this publication have passed through when it's been handled by an educational or research institution. Also, non-for-profit medical organization or a division of the US government are likely to contain highly qualitative information. Whereas, when you look at sites or journals that are owned by a company, profit-making, they want to promote their product, it calls for question. Next slide, please. Now, consumer health information. I want to talk about, yes, we as pharmacists, we provide information for healthcare providers, physicians, nurses, surgeons, dentists. We provide drug information, but they are the laymen, non-health professionals, who are the consumers. Since many of them find at least one of their information online, what we pharmacists need to do, we should be prepared to help such consumers evaluate the quality of the information found online, as well as recommend sites where the information might be found. And that is why this drug information training session or modules are very important, because it sharpens our skills so that we can offer qualitative service both to healthcare providers and also non-profit healthcare practitioners and consumers. Next slide, please. So there is a site that helps us to assess quality of most of these primary sources that we find online. It's called the Health on the Net. The site is there, which clearly defines the rules to evaluate the quality of information available via a website. This organization, they do not evaluate every website available, but instead only those who request evaluation. Since many websites do not request evaluation, the lack of an organizational quality seal does not mean that necessarily indicate that the information is of low quality. Next slide. As a conclusion, next slide, please. As a conclusion, practitioners, pharmacists must not only be satisfied with merely identifying sources of drug information. Understanding where to access information is only the first step in the provision of quality drug information via primary literature review. Information must be interpreted and evaluated to become knowledge. It is our work to synthesize and analyze and put together, and it is a skillful process. There's a lot of skills in it, which we learn on the job, hands-on. You will learn with time to make most of this gamut of knowledge usable to other healthcare providers. And that is a specialized work. And that is why we call ourselves drug information specialists. It is this unique knowledge that will enable us practitioners as pharmacists to optimize patient care via the provision of responsible, qualitative healthcare to all, both the sick and those that are not sick. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Polycarp, for your part. It was a very interesting session, even though the network prevented us from enjoying a smooth flow, where we're truly educated from your presentation. So once again, we want to thank all that have been present, the over 42, 43 persons. So the network have been making, bouncing some people out and bringing, relogging them in again. But it has truly been an interesting session. So at this point, we will welcome comments and questions from those of us who have been part of this discussion. You can indicate by raising your hand, using your raise hand icon. For those whose videos are not on, because it looks like only very few persons have their videos on. Comments and questions, please. Okay, Dr. Felicia Williams. Please unmute yourself and speak. Dr.
Good
Felicia
evening.
Williams, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening,
Yes, we
everyone.
can hear you, ma.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. We want to thank
Good evening, ma.
Yes, we want to thank all the presenters for a beautiful work. My comment has to do with the primary source, what was presented by Dr. Polycarp in regards to literature review. We want to approach literature review from epidemiological perspective. When we talk about epidemiological perspective, we want to look at what is the state of the research or the available literature globally, if there is any, sub-Saharan Africa, if there's any, and local, if there's any. The available literature is dependent on the timing of the study and also available data. For instance, if anyone was to carry out a study on COVID-19 vis-a-vis use of hydroxychloroquine around January, February, March, we know that the information at that time was very, very scanty. Even about COVID-19 was very scanty. But currently, we know we have a lot of information. So if one is the initial investigator on a particular topic, the information will be very scanty at the onset. So if there's problem with availability of information, it does not mean that the quality of the work is poor. One may be the one that's actually breaking the ice with regards to that particular information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma, for that one very important and wonderful contribution. At this point, please permit me to recognize Professor Bola Oayuwola. Sorry if I didn't get that correctly. So, thank you very much for honoring us with your presence. And I also want to appreciate loads and loads of senior colleagues that are here present, professors and fellows, both of the society and of the college. We welcome more comments and contributions, questions from those of us present. Please, you could use your raise your hand icon if your video is not on. Any questions or comments? Okay, it looks like our presenters did justice to the, okay. Is that Caleb Yaduma? Is your hand on? Oh, please. Okay, please unmute yourself and speak.
Yes, you're free to unmute yourself.
Question I would like to ask is just in trying to set up a drug information unit, what are the basic things that you need for it to actually function maximally? What are the resources you need to actually set up a drug information unit that will function maximally? Because in my center now, in my center, I would like to set up a drug information unit, but I don't know the comprehensive list of things that I would like to actually get, and then for the drug information unit to actually kick off. So I would like our colleagues, the colleagues that are here with us, to actually help me out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can anybody provide an answer?
Maybe I should take that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Bello, please go ahead.
Thank you for that query, Pharmacist Caleb. Is it primarily to set up a place you need skills. That's the one thing you need, skills. Then number two, space. When you have space, then you need materials. Number one, you need a computer system, photocopier, scanner. Are we together?
Yes,
Then
sir.
good internet connectivity, good internet, broadband, good internet. Then those are just materials. But basically what you need is the skills and the training that we are doing. Because there are many things that you need to do. In addition to providing information, a lot of things you need to do as a drug information specialist. But basically what you need a space, you need a computer system, scanner, photocopier. That is the first thing. Then the most important thing is you need to have the skills. The skills. If you don't have the skills, if you have the space and materials, you're not able to optimize their use. But to start with, get a space, get those materials, and get more skills. That's my contribution. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bello. I would like to contribute to that.
All right, sir.
Like Dr. Bello said, skills, number one, one of the most important factors. The second is self-determination. Now, the question of space, computers, yes, all those are necessary in the line of providing your drug information. But once you are determined and you have the skill, you can start with your mobile device, as small as your phone. I started the Drug Information Center at the Delta State University Teaching Hospital with my mobile phone and an internet connection. We didn't have space. All I was just doing is making people aware that there is information for them. So I was always online, going through these sources that have been listed. With time, I got my own laptop, got my own printer. When I had a laptop and a printer, then space needed to be provided because I already created awareness on the need for a drug information center. Now that's why I said self-determination and the skills. With that, an internet connection, please, very necessary. Yeah. Then with that, you create the awareness, space will be provided. You can then write for a computer, a printer, provision of papers, and all of that. Take note, the bureaucracies in offices will set in. So if you are not self-determined, the bureaucracy may discourage you. Okay. So you have to continue pushing because the issue of funding will now become also a challenge. So if you want to set up a drug information center, from my own experience, it is usually not possible to just have everything at once. But once you have a phone that connects to the internet, a mobile phone that connects to the internet, you have the skill, you have self-determination. Just go ahead with your device. You've been a lot have been said about the primary sources. You've been shown the websites and all of that you can go to. Just be making use of that, be providing information, and then make a case for these other items. The computer, a space, they will come as you are providing information. That's my input to your question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Just want to add something there. Am I on, Dr. Jiro?
Yes, you are.
Please.
Oh, okay. Yes. Another thing, Yaduma, you could collaborate with centers that are closer to your facility. Yes, I know that we have drugs, well-established drug information centers around most of the tertiary facilities that we have around our states. So you could actually collaborate with those people. They could maybe do some exchange, maybe online. You'll be speaking to them while you are, working on what you are doing. They, keep on, that's a work in progress. Whatever challenge you face, you talk to them, they will see you through. Even you can take advantage of this drug information specialist forum and their expertise too. We have a lot of experts here. You can get their contacts so that you start it. You need to start it because that's what will give you relevance. Because when you don't impact on the system, there is no lacuna that is left when you leave. You understand? So you need to do it so that you start creating impact. So that when a pharmacist is not there, there is something missing. And there's the drug information aspect, up-to-date drug information aspect. So you have no reason to wait now that we have this kind of forum where we have experts that are here to assist you in whatever you want to do. The skills are at your doorstep now, begging on you to say, use me. You understand? So we are urging you to start.
Thank you very much. I think I see a hand up. Dr.
That's
Ojo.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can unmute yourself, please. You have been permitted to do that. Unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good evening. It's always a pleasure to be on this call and gain insights into drug information and the likes. I wouldn't know if my question had been addressed in the course of the presentation because I had a clash of meetings, so I joined a little bit late. But I want to find out for our vibrant drug information centers, do we have functional toll-free lines where patients could call in and all of that? Or what is our means of engagement with our patients? Do we have a toll-free line, or do we have a telephone number? Well, the question is, do we have a toll-free line? Because I know that in developed climes, toll-free lines do exist in such places to make it easy so that the inquirer is not expending funds in trying. So I want to find out if that is going on in those facilities, and if it is going on, how do we sustain the toll-free lines? Do we have sponsorships from companies, pharmaceutical companies, or they are in-house sponsored? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. Will anybody want to, any of the presenters or anybody in the audience want to add? Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. I want to say
hello, I don't know if we had my question.
Yes, very loud and clear. Dr. Bello wants to speak on it.
You're talking about toll-free line. Can I go on?
Yes, you can, Dr. Bello.
So in response to that, I want to say that providing drug information is of two types. We have the passive one and we have the active one. Let me tell you most sincerely, in Nigeria, there's no support for, I don't know for other places, but there's no support for any DIU. So what is basically operating now is the active one. The one we're doing now, organizing clinical meetings, they're releasing bulletin newsletter to inform people. People don't call in now, they don't call in, they don't walk in. It is pharmacy that's taking the active step, going out to them, giving the information, organizing clinical meetings, seminars, workshops. That's basically what is operating now. It is in developed countries and some countries like Ghana that I believe they have those things. But in Nigeria, I don't know of any place that they do call in. So what is basically operating is the pharmacist in charge being proactive, doing active drug services. That is my own experience. So, you produce newsletter on monthly basis, you organize clinical meetings on weekly basis, you do seminars, you do outreach, and that is what is operating in my own center, basically.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bello. For the Delta State University Teaching Hospital, when we started, there was the intercom system in the hospital. from all the consulting rooms, all the wards to the drug information center. However, the usual Nigerian syndrome, it could not be sustained and the intercom system went down. But we created enough awareness such that other healthcare providers were able to just walk into the pharmacy and request for information. So as for toll-free lines, that is also not available in my center currently. Like I said, it was not sustainable, but currently the hospital building is undergoing reconstruction, and all of that has been included into the building again. That is the intercom system. Like Dr. Bello mentioned, the other things we do is you dish out drug information as drug alerts, bulletins, circulating to all offices and notice boards. That is what we do for now. I don't know if any other person have a specific. Okay, I think there are more.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Am I on? Dr. Ejiro, am I on?
Okay, please, can you go ahead?
Can I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what I want to say is that I think that is a very good idea. As per sustainability for now, I still want to encourage that idea that it's not possible for centers to have, even if it's a dedicated line, so that people that can afford it can call that line and they know that they will always have a pharmacist information specialist at the other end to answer drug questions and queries. And that could actually trickle down to the community pharmacies. Yes, they could actually have dedicated lines where their clients can call at any time of the day, and they can always have, if they cannot get to the pharmacy physically. I think it's possible, at least for now. If we cannot have toll-free lines, we can have dedicated lines. I think maybe some pharmacies they have. We can encourage that around most community pharmacies and drug information centers around health facilities, so that it could promote this culture of service delivery via information from pharmacies concerning drug queries, and it will help to create more impact. Yes, I wouldn't want a situation where, since we know it's going to cost, but we always know that there are some clients that will be able to afford to call. Yes, we know that at times people call us for drug queries, even without our personal numbers. So if we have that for a unit, definitely few people will call. Over with time, we'll now work on how to get a toll-free line, and then we head on from that place. That is my contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Polycarp.
Can I say something?
Produce hand up. I think that is Dr. Onedu and Benga Joseph still have their hands up. But please, let's hear Dr. Ojo out to see if we've been able to address her question. Dr. Ojo, please unmute and.
Okay. Thank you very much. Actually, in our drug information center, we were able to get a toll-free line started by a company sponsored for 1 year. But after that 1 year, it was a little bit difficult getting a further sponsorship, even though the focus for the company was more of patients being able to report adverse drug reactions for pharmacovigilance reporting. So I'm looking at a situation where we could facilitate sponsorship by our pharmaceutical industries. A situation where we could facilitate sponsorship by them and sell it as a project to them. Maybe pharmaceutical companies in various locations, at least to sponsor, maybe to start with tertiary institutions to sponsor toll-free lines for drug information inquiries, and like we have itemized, to be able to project pharmacy practice more and be able to create relevance for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, man. That's a great suggestion, and I must say your center was very lucky to have gotten that 1 year sponsorship, because I know my center tried for several years without success. Let's now listen to Titilayo Onedo. Please, can you unmute yourself and speak?
Okay. Thank you very much, the presenters of today, the moderator, and the other esteemed colleagues present at this meeting this night. I want to actually make a comment on these dedicated lines. In my facility, we really do not have a toll-free line, but we have something very close to that. But that is just for the healthcare professionals within the hospital facility. We have lines whereby we don't even need to pay anything. The management makes a certain amount of payment to the provider, and we can communicate. Apart from the intercom, we have dedicated lines to DIC and even to some other units. And we do get patients who walk into our facility, into our drug information center, and they even make calls, because over years we at the point of counseling, we give out drug information leaflets, and we have some numbers on the leaflet. The drug information experts in our unit, we have their numbers on the drug information materials given out at the point of counseling. And we get a lot of, query from patients, that even some even call you at annoying time of the day, like in the night. Some will call and be, but you just have to attend to them, because a drug information center actually should run for 24 hours. So we attend to them. But it won't be a bad idea if we can have a toll-free line. It won't really be a bad idea. I don't know how that, because like she said, that a company sponsored for 1 year and thereafter they disappeared. I don't know how we can, because that will go a long way in projecting practice to the public. But then we, like I said, we still get a lot of calls from our patients. I think the other facilities too can actually adopt that method of giving out drug information leaflets, whereby you put your numbers, and you would be amazed at the number of calls that you'll be receiving. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. At this point, I want to sincerely apologize if I'm not getting your titles correctly, because I'm just looking at the names as they appear in the display in the app. So please pardon me if I'm not getting your correct titles. I want to call on Benga Joseph. A hand has been up. Please unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, please permit me to stand on the existing protocol. I'm Benga Joseph. I work with the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. And thank God for this initiative of having drug information centers in all our facilities and some of the established MDAs to be able to put the right information across to our consumers and our clients and other healthcare professionals. But I just want to provide this advice that since we want to provide a scientific information that is not biased, it's not dependent on individuals' opinions, and because it needs to be well structured, we need to take a clue from the established policy that we have on ground. We have the pharmacovigilance policy on ground. We have the national drug policies on ground. I also have the established directive in terms of how to establish the drug information centers. But we still are not having currently at the national level the guidelines that will guide whosoever want to establish the drug information centers. So there will be need for this, group that is having the experience in terms of domesticating some of these things in our centers to come together to have a draft of the guidelines that will guide whosoever that will be establishing drug information centers. Because as we continue to practice this and as we continue to give information to our client, there will be a lot of challenges, and we need to structure the process from the beginning so that individual opinion will not be outside and then will not dilute what everybody is doing. It needs to be properly structured, including the form, including the channels, including the queries. Even the legal issue that will be involved will also be contained in some of those documents so that everything is well structured from the beginning to the end so that we can actually plan ahead and see how we can do some of these things. As regards the 2-3 lines, some of those things are very critical. If we are talking about the passive and active, those things are very, very critical because we need to look at what type of drug information centers and the type of approach we want to use to be able to make sure that the right information is outside there. I would like to advise that there's supposed to be a proper guideline that will put in place that will guide all these initiatives and all efforts so that we can make sure that we are moving in the right perspective and then we can review our progress as time continues. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this wonderful contribution. And like you mentioned, it's a good thing that this wonderful group is in place to drive such initiative. Dr. Felicia Williams, your hand is up. Please unmute yourself and continue more.
Thank you so much for all the past speakers who are building stage of this unique initiative. With regard to encouraging pharmaceutical companies to sponsor a toll-free line, since they are suppliers to these tertiary institutions, we can encourage them to look at it as part of their social responsibility. They are taking so much from the system, they should be able to give back to the system. And one of the ways they can give back to the system is sponsoring that toll-free line. And in the process, it's going to be a win-win arrangement because there may be occasions where such companies will be acknowledged. Then secondly, with regards to providing drug information, we want to also remember that there are legal issues, ethical issues involved. We want to be careful how we provide that information. Imagine a patient calls or a client calls that my spouse is using a particular medicine and tries to send the name of that medicine. And coincidentally, it is an antiretroviral medicine. What do you do? We want to be very careful with providing drug information.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma, for that great reminder. I think that also takes us back to the previous speaker on the need for policies and standards to be put in place to guide the practice of drug information in our hospitals and our practice, whether community practice or wherever our location is. Thank you very much, Ma. Dr. Idris Kupola, please can you unmute and speak up? I think that should be about
thank you very much. Yes, I want to appreciate the various contributions on the modality for setting up. Definitely, we should have a policy in place. We cannot, especially the contributor for the contribution from the pharmacists from Center for Disease Control. He made very important points. But much as I want to agree with some of the issues that have been raised about policy, procedures, ethical, legal issues, where I know for sure that some of the drug information centers in Nigeria have pharmacovigilance, joined together, as a department. But the issue of having companies, pharmaceutical companies, to sponsor such a kind of a toll-free line as part of their ethical, social responsibility, I think it will create a conflict of interest. The guideline setting up pharmacovigilance does not allow marketing authorization holders of pharmaceutical companies, to sponsor anything that has to do with pharmacovigilance, because it will lead to conflict of interest, because any of their products could be involved, in any reactions that might need to be reported. And when such companies are the sponsors of, activities that has to do with the center, I don't know whether we will not, biases will not set in. And so I think we'll have to be very careful when we have pharmacovigilance and drug information center joined together, and having companies to now sponsor toll-free lines. It will create conflict of interest. I stand to be corrected. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution. So we'll be rounding up with the last contribution that should be coming from pharmacist Mrs. Folashade Lawal. Your hand is up, so we want to take your comment as the last comment for tonight.
Yes, thank you for, let me appreciate the last speaker. I was going to say that from my own training in drug information, we do not work with private farms. We are not allowed to entertain them in any form because they will bias what you do. A drug information center must be totally unbiased in everything that it does. It's not even all right for us to produce write-ups and then they advertise in it, no. So for them to sponsor a toll-free line will just not be, it's expected to be funded by the government. When we went for the training in Ghana, the drug information center that they had was purely government established. So funding from manufacturers or all of these companies, we just introduce bias into what we do. That's what I wanted to say. And in the area of providing information, like we're told, we need to come up with structured guidelines and all that too, so that we have a proper process in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. It's been a very interesting, informative, and educative interaction this evening. Please, I want to plead with Dr. Felicia Williams, even though it's an impromptu and emergency request, I want to plead that she gives us a vote of thanks before we call it a day.
Please, ma. Dr. Ejiri, you are putting me on the spot.
That is why I'm pleading, ma.
It's all right. On behalf of the drug information experts, the organizers of this program. We want to thank all the speakers of this week's training that we have gotten. Some of the information may serve as a refresher course, some serve as new information. We have all learned. We also want to thank all the participants for staying on till this time. If not for the interest, some of us should be asleep at this time. We want to thank you so much. We want to thank our professors that are here present, our senior colleagues, fellows of the West African Postgraduate College of Pharmacists. We're all appreciated. Thank you so much. I look forward to another wonderful, insightful, impactful presentation in 2 weeks' time. Thank you. Good night and
thank you very much. Thank you very much, ma. Good night, one and all.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Good
so
night,
much.
all.
Yeah.